The Citroen C5 Aircross has carved out a name for itself by being one of the most comfortable cars in the mid-size SUV segment, but it's facing a lot of competition. So Citroen has given it a bit of a refresh, and we're going to have a look at seeing what's changed. Most of the change happens around the front, where it has an all-new front end, including these striking LED daytime running lights. This is part of a new look for the brand that we've already seen on the C5X, and we'll see in other models as they get refreshed and updated. There is now a new chin splitter along the front here. This gives it less of a rounded look that was on the last model and a bit more of a harder SUV edge that we see now. There's now a new grille design, and the chevrons no longer flow into a grille. They're actually much more standalone feature on the front end. Other features include new 18-inch wheels. It's an all-new design that Citroen is applying to this updated facelift model. And if you haven't already seen it on other Citroens, when you have a plug-in hybrid model, you also get a little blue H symbol here on the front wing. Other details that's a feature of the Aircross is you get contrasting door mirror colors, get these nice black roof rails, and a chrome window surround. Really gives it quite a distinctive C shape here. Big thick C-pillar, but that's actually a glass window as well, so it does allow a little bit more light in. And with a plug-in hybrid, you get an extra charge port on this side. Opening that, you've got a normal connection here. Around about 2 hours on a domestic wall box will fully charge the battery. It's a 13.2 kilowatt hour battery, and that's good, Citroen say, for around 55 kilometers of electric only driving. Now, like on the front, there's also new lighting on the back. Citroen has gone away from its round shapes for these new taillights. They now have a much more horizontal, bolder 3-bar configuration here. Still going to make sure that it stands out. And also in the back, the good news is, although this isn't a 7-seat, there is a lot more boot space. In the plug-in hybrid, it has 460 litres of boot space, and that can increase to 600 litres when you move the rear seats forward. One of the advantages that the C5 has over some of its competitors is that there are 3 individual rear seats in here rather than a bench. That means that they can all slide individually up to 150 millimeters, depending on how much room you need. So if you need more boot space, you can slide these forward, either 1, 2, or 3 of them, or alternatively, if you want more leg room, you can actually slide them back. So it's quite good that you can actually do, and there is quite a lot of space there. Sitting with these further back and with this driver's seat in the setup for my driving position, being 5'9", I have quite a bit of knee room here, so that's quite good. I can stretch out. I can get my feet underneath the seat in front, which is always a good thing to be able to do. And I have, well, I've got a couple of centimeters of headroom there as well, so it's not too bad. And also there is the benefit that this has a full-length glass sunroof as well, so it just means that although the shade is closed over now in the sun, on a nice day you still have a good bit of visibility out front, so you don't feel like you're confined sitting in the back seats. The 2 outer rear seats also have isofix points, so you can mount child seats in there, and being able to slide those around does just make it that little bit easier as well. There's a charge point here in the back and 2 air vents. The backs of the seats have some netting there as well, and the windows aren't actually too high up, so the relatively low point here means even smaller passengers will be able to see out, so they're not going to get travel sick, which is always important. The comfort is a huge part of the C5 Aircross, and these driver's seats are a big factor in that. Not only is it the suspension, which we'll talk about in a few minutes when we get out on the road, but these seats have high density foam. It's a little bit thicker than you'd get in a normal car seat, and they're nicely bolstered. There's a good bit of adjustability, and they are very, very comfortable. Much more like almost sitting in an armchair rather than sitting in your car seat. Now, there are some other changes as part of this updated C5 Aircross, most notably here along the center console. For starters, with the automatic, no longer does it have the traditional automatic gear selector. It's been replaced by this smaller toggle switch. We've seen this in other Citroens like the EC4, the electric car, and it just frees up a lot more space. You have your park, reverse drive, all that is here, just a button feature. You've got an engine stop-start button, some extra storage, electronic handbrake, the drive mode selectors here, so you can go through different versions if you want to go between fully electric or having both motors going at the same time. And there's also then a wireless charging pad, so if you've got your phone, you can just pop it in there, and without having to plug it in, it will automatically start charging. You've got a couple of cup holders in here, and if you open up the center armrest, then there's a lot more storage. This goes quite the way in, it's quite deep, so we like that there's a lot of space to put things inside. The most notable difference is that there's now a new 10-inch touchscreen display. It's the same as what we've already seen on the C5X. So this is Citroen's latest system. It's got an improved infotainment system. It's got built-in navigation, all the kind of features you'd want. And crucially, for a lot of people, it also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So you can have your mobile device connected and run Google Maps, Spotify, Waze, all the apps you're familiar with, you can have built in straight away there on the car as well. There's a nice frameless rear view mirror, and provided that all the rear headrests are down, you've got pretty good visibility, and the steering wheel is pretty much unchanged as before. It's quite simple. I like the fact that there's not an array of buttons. It's very easy. You've just got a couple of different buttons and scroll wheels here for going through, and you've got a fully digital instrument display. Again, this is configurable, so you can change what you have on display there. It just makes it a little bit easier. You can have a lot of information, or you can have a very simple display. It will show you how much petrol you have in your petrol tank, and it will show you how many kilometers you have left in your battery as well. So everything is very clearly laid out. It's very easy to use. There's a good sense of space here. This new center console makes quite a difference as well. Just makes it quite a good place to be sitting when you're going to be driving on a longer journey, and the outward visibility is actually quite good as well. There's a good bit of adjustability from the front seats and from the steering wheel as well. So if I adjust that, you can see exactly how much. There's quite a lot of array of movement there as well. So pretty much everybody is going to be able to find a comfortable driving position in the Citroen. Every time you get in and start the C5 Aircross plug-in hybrid, it will automatically default to using the battery wherever possible. So even if you've only got a little bit of charge, when you get in first and hit that engine start, it will actually use the electric motor. So it always tries to use this wherever possible. Now, there is a lot of criticism leveled at plug-in hybrids because a lot of people say that people who buy them don't actually ever plug them in or charge them. And although you can't make people do that, Citroen has designed the software on the C5 Aircross plug-in hybrid to keep track of it. And if it sees that, hey, you're not really plugging this thing in every so often, it will actually pop up an alert or a menu message on the screen to tell you, hey, you need to start plugging this thing in if you're going to get the most benefit from having a plug-in hybrid. So it is trying to encourage people, although in our experience, anecdotally, a lot of people that do have plug-in hybrids, certainly private buyers, do tend to plug them in and use them all the time. Now, that battery range, Citroen says it's good for about 55 kilometers in WLTP. That figure will unfortunately vary depending on how you're using it and where you're using it. For example, here on the first drive of this car, it's particularly hot today. So we've got the aircon going fairly hard on it, and that has made a little bit more of a dent than it probably normally would back in Ireland. In typical use, you're probably going to see upwards of 40 kilometers, closer to 50 in reality, but again, it really does depend on how you're using that car. The good news is that it doesn't take especially long to charge the battery. So even if you do need to plug in once or twice during the day, it's actually not going to take that long to get it back up. And that's where you're going to get the biggest benefit from a plug-in hybrid. If you're doing typically short journeys and you can actually plug it in once or twice a day to do that. Now, yes, I know there's the argument that, well, if you can plug it in, you should have a fully electric car, but there is going to be situations where people just don't want to have to worry when they do a longer journey. Maybe it's once a month, that they don't want to have to think about the added headache of, am I going to be able to charge it along the way? And they'll just revert to using the petrol engine in that case. Now with this petrol engine, it is pretty good. It's a fairly willing engine. It's not overly powerful. The hybrid system has a combined output of 225 horsepower. So it is quick when you're using the petrol and the electric motor, but also bear in mind, if you're looking at what that magical advertised fuel consumption figure is combined on a plug-in hybrid, bear in mind a big chunk of that is because of using the battery. So if you're not using the battery, you are just carrying a lot of extra weight. It's the equivalent of having one or two more people on board, and that's just going to make a dent into your fuel consumption. Even when the battery is down, it's not out. It will still work as a regular hybrid, and if you use the battery save mode, the B button here, it will try and add as much energy back into the battery wherever possible. So when you're slowing down or you're braking for a corner, it will harvest some of that kinetic energy as a result of the petrol engine and try and put it back into the battery. When you do start using that petrol engine, it will dip in and out depending on how you're using it, and it's best to really not try and labor it too hard. If you've got a heavy foot and you put your foot down, it is going to get a little bit noisy, a little bit uncouth, and it kind of shows that it can sometimes seem a little bit underpowered for the car. But that's only when you're really trying to absolutely go as quickly as you can. In normal urban driving like we're doing now, we're kind of doing 50 kilometers an hour. The petrol engine is working right now, but it's actually very quiet. You don't really notice it, and it does pull the car along quite comfortably. It doesn't feel strained. So in that situation, it actually works pretty well. It's quite refined. There's obviously a lot of sound insulation in the car as well, including an additional layer of laminate on the windscreen, and that all helps make this car a little bit quieter, a little bit more polished, and a little bit more refined on the move. And the engine is also very quick to shut back off again as soon as you lift your foot off the accelerator pedal, and particularly if you're on any sort of decline, if you're going downhill, it immediately turns off the engine and reverts back to using the electric motor and harvesting a little bit more energy for the battery. All that aside, the good news is that the C5 remains a very pleasant car to drive. It is very, very comfortable. Granted, the progressive hydraulic cushion suspension is slightly firmer on this plug-in hybrid on account of the extra battery weight, but that said, it's still a very enjoyable, very comfortable car to drive. The fact that it's only on 18-inch wheels means that there's a little bit more sidewall on the tire, again helps to absorb a little bit more of those lumps and bumps along the road. So that's our first drive review of this updated Citroen C5 Aircross. If you want to know a little bit more about it, head over to our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below, and it's a great resource tool for researching your next car purchase. We have detailed reviews of this, including specification, pricing, and the same for all of its rivals. In the meantime, we'd love to know what you think about the C5 Aircross, so do tell us in the comments below what you think about it. And in the meantime, do remember to subscribe to the Complete Car YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and next time we upload a video review, you'll be alerted to that too. Thanks for watching.